Welcome to the last video on fractions, which is adding and subtracting fractions. So just like in the previous videos, I do have the correct mathematical notation and the theorems attached to this, but really all we really need to know is that in order for us to be able to add or subtract fractions, the denominators must be the same, and then you're going to just add the numerators or subtract the numerators, and that's about it. So the first section of problems is really just dealing with that. If we take a look and notice, all of my examples here have the same denominators. For the first one, the denominators are 3. For the second one, the denominators are 24. The fourth one, my denominators are x. And then for the last example, all the denominators are 8. So that is what we want. We want the denominators to be the same, and we're in luck because they are. So let's go ahead and do our first example. We are going to, I'm just going to change the thickness to just a little bit thicker. There we go. Since our denominators are the same, I'm just going to take the numerators and essentially add them together. Now, since in this particular case, one of the numerators is x, we can't really do anything other than what we have already done. So that's the first example. Now, for the second example that I have here, I am going to take that negative and kind of attach it to the numerator, and I'll rewrite it. You don't have to typically rewrite it. I just want you to see that I'm attaching it to the numerator, and then I'm subtracting the 13 over 24. Since my denominators are the same, I'm just going to rewrite everything so that I have one denominator, and I'd have negative 23 minus 13. Since both of them are negative, what I would end up doing is add the numbers together. So 23 plus 13, and I'd end up with 36. And since they are both negative, that would become negative 36 over 24. Now, I can simplify this. I can divide both the numerator and the denominator by 4. So that would become negative 9 over 6. And I actually can take that, simplify that even further, divide both by 3. So this would become 3 halves. And so that would be my very final answer there. Negative 3 halves. For my third example, again, I'm going to attach that negative to the 10, and I'm just going to rewrite this as just one whole fraction over x, because my denominators are the same, which would become negative 14 over x, and I cannot simplify that at all. Last example, just because I have 3 fractions does not change what I do. I can rewrite everything over my denominator, which is 8, and I'm just adding together the 3 plus the negative 5, and then I'm subtracting 1. So 3 plus a negative 5 becomes negative 2, and then I subtract 1, which would become negative 3/8. And that is the last example here for just having the same denominators. Now, if they have different denominators, what we're going to have to do is find the least common denominator. And the least common denominator of two fractions is the smallest number that can be used as a common denominator for the fraction. And essentially, we need to try and find a number where if we were to multiply both denominators, I would get that number. I don't have to multiply both. Okay, so since they don't have the same denominator, I do have to find one. And actually, the same denominator would actually end up being 36. And the way that I can get this is by multiplying 12 by 3 and by multiplying 18 by 2. And that would give us 36 for both denominators. So since I multiplied the denominator, the 12 by 3, then that means to say I need to multiply the 7 by 3. And since I multiplied 18 by 2, that means to say I need to multiply 5 by 2. So 7 times 3, 21. 5 times 2, 10. And so I would end up with 31 over 36. Okay. And I really can't simplify that, so I'm just going to keep it as 31 over 36. Okay. Next example is when we're doing subtraction. Again, nothing's really changed. I still need to find the least common denominator. And since 15 and 24 are not the same, I need to find the least common denominator, which happens to be 120. So 120 minus, and then my other denominator is 120. And the way I get that is by multiplying 15 by 8. So I need to multiply 7 by 8, which is 56. And then 24, you have to multiply by 5, and that would give you 120, which means you need to multiply 19 by 5, which would be 95. And so now you would just subtract the numerators. So 56 minus 95 is going to end up being a negative 39 over 120. Now, this actually you can simplify. And we could divide both the numerator and the denominator by 3 in order to do that. So this would end up being 13 over 40. And now we are good to go. That is our least common denominator, or that is our simplified subtraction of the two fractions. Okay. Now, last thing that we could do here, and this is an addition example. If you get stuck, okay, if you get stuck, the trick here is you could always multiply the other denominator by the other number. So what do I mean by that? I can take the 5, if I were to multiply it by the other denominator, which is 8, that would give me 40. And if I were to multiply 8 by 5, which is the first denominator, that would also give me 40. So really that is kind of a cheap trick here to get the same denominator for both fractions. So if I were to multiply the 5 by 8, that means to say I need to multiply the 3 by 8, which is 24. And I would need to multiply x by 5 as well, so that would give us 5x, and then we add the numerators together, so 24 plus 5x. And I really can't combine those because one of them has an x and the other one doesn't, over 40. And that's about it. That's really all we can do here. So that's how we would leave it. This is the last video for fractions. Definitely do practice all of these before moving on to the next sections. It is very important to make sure that you are able to, particularly for adding and subtracting, that you are comfortable with finding the least common denominator so that you can add and subtract. Thank you, and see you next time.